Hi, welcome back to Books Like Fun. I'm Bo. Today I'm going to review The Women by Kristin. Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McGrath hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is a story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era. This book is categorized as historical fiction. Our main character, Frankie, is a nursing student, and her brother, Finley, goes off to war in Vietnam. She decides that she wants to follow in his footsteps after his friend, Finley's friend, Rye, tells her that women can be heroes too. Frankie's parents are not happy that she's going to go to war. They were super proud of her brother Finley, but they were not proud of her for deciding to go to war, because back then they thought that women should just marry and have kids, and that's what they could provide to the world. Frankie meets a lot of other women who are nurses in Vietnam. The main ones are Patty, Ethel, Barb, and Margie. Ethel and Barb become her best friends, and she sees them after the war. She also meets a doctor named Jamie, and then she sees Rye again, who was her brother's friend. Overall, I gave the characters 4 stars because they were very well written. You could really feel what they were feeling at the time. I don't usually read historical fiction, but this one I really got into. I listened to the audio version of this one, but I really liked it. And maybe I'll read more historical fiction. The book starts out being set in Southern California. She grew up on Coronado Island. There's a lot of Navy families on Coronado Island. And then half the book is her in Vietnam, and the descriptions of the setting in Vietnam are so detailed. As I was listening to this book, I could picture everything that was happening in my head. All of the descriptions made me feel like I was experiencing it with her. So I gave the atmosphere and the setting 4 stars. As for writing style, like I said before, I listened to the audiobook, and that really kept me invested in the story because I don't normally read historical fiction. So I'm not sure if I would have felt the same way if I was reading it or not, but the narrator did such a fantastic job. She had different voices for the different characters, and she varied her tone, and she just read really well. And I also liked listening to it because I didn't get accidental spoilers. You know how you're reading along and your eyes dart to a different section of the page and you might spoil something for yourself? That didn't happen when I was listening to the book. So I gave writing style 4 stars as well. So like I said before, it starts out in Southern California, Coronado Island, San Diego area, and then half the book is set in Vietnam. And then when she comes back, she suffers from PTSD, but they don't have a name for it yet. And she goes looking for help every once in a while. When she realizes she really does need help, she goes to the VA hospital. She goes to other places that are supposed to help veterans, but they don't consider her a veteran. They keep telling her that there weren't any women in Vietnam. And I don't understand why they would say that. Everybody knew that nurses went to Vietnam. They didn't think that that was good enough to need help when you came back. Someone told her that she didn't see combat because she was a nurse. but she was shot at. There were bombings all around her. Just because she didn't have a gun to shoot back at them doesn't mean she didn't see combat. The story really depicts very well what the soldiers went through when they came home. They were spit on, they were yelled at, they were called names, they were not welcomed home with open arms at all. The first time soldiers from Vietnam were welcomed home with open arms were when the POWs came back, and that was several years after the war ended. So I give the plot 4 stars as well. As for intrigue, I don't know that there's a whole lot of intrigue because it's historical fiction. So it's not the same as a mystery book or a horror book or something like that. But I learned a lot about the Vietnam War from this book, and I didn't know these things before. So I guess that would be considered intrigue. She also had a lot of relationships and things that happened in her personal life that were intriguing. There were times that I did not guess what was going to happen next, so it's got some intrigue. The Vietnam War was way before my time. I don't have any personal experiences of listening to news stories or soldiers coming home or anything like that, way before my time. But I give the intrigue 4 stars as well. Logically, everything in the story makes sense. The relationships between the characters, the things that happen in Vietnam. I listened to the author's notes at the end, and she made sure to be very accurate about the names of the hospitals and the names of the cities in Vietnam. So all of that was very realistic. I didn't always like all of the relationships in the book. There were times that I wanted to smack my head or smack the main character in the face because of the decisions that she made. But I do think they logically made sense given her PTSD. One relationship she had while she was in Vietnam, she started up that relationship after Vietnam, and I did not agree with her choices there. I ended up hating that character at some point, but that just means it was really good writing. When you really hate a character that doesn't exist, you know that the writing is good. So logic and relationships also get a 4 star. As for enjoyment, I really did enjoy this book. I listened to it while I would go on walks in the mornings. It never felt like it was slogging along or anything like that. It was very enjoyable, given the subject matter, of course. War is never enjoyable. But learning more about the Vietnam War was enjoyable, and it was much better than reading about it in a history book. So I gave enjoyment 4 stars as well. So the overall rating, the math is easy for this one, 4 stars. So it was a great book. There was one quote that I wrote down. It was in chapter 18. She said, "She joined the army to find her brother and found herself instead." I really liked that quote. It was the only one that really stuck out to me. So my recommendation is, yeah, I recommend it. If you like historical fiction, you will love this book. If you don't like historical fiction, you might still like this book. I don't usually read historical fiction, but I really did enjoy this book. It's a strong story. It's a powerful story. There were parts that made me laugh, and there were parts that made me cry. So it's a great book. Let me know in the comments if you've read it, and if you are interested in watching another video that I've done. Click whatever shows up on the screen. See you next time. Bye.